Hello fellow Earthlings, it's Libs, and today I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up. So it's been a pretty good reading month. I've read 7 books this month, which I'm really happy with, although I do actually have a DNF this time, so that's loud. So I think I'll start with that one. What are you doing? So the book I DNF'd was Crime and Punishment. I don't know why I thought I'd be able to read Crime and Punishment. I tried to listen to the audiobook and I got 33% of the way in and then just decided that I couldn't deal with it anymore. I was listening to it whenever I was playing Animal Crossing because I thought that would, get me through it, but I just could not pay attention to this book. It was just a lot. So I had been planning on filming a video where I read like Timothy Chalamet. That not happening. I can't do it. There was that. And then I just kept looking over at 1984 and going, I can't do it right now. I've got too much going on. So that video's on hold. Maybe I'll do it in the future. I'm just not in the mood for really dense classics at the moment. Okay, so I actually read a textbook this month, which is surprising because I notoriously never actually finish textbooks. I always read like 2 chapters and then pretend they were worth the money. But I did read The Journalist's Guide to Media Law because I had a media law exam. Not going to talk about that anymore because I can pretend it never happened now. So a book that I was reading at the end of last month and wasn't able to finish and finished this month was Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Machado. So this is a short story collection that's kind of horror-y. It's a bit fantasy, very creepy, got lots of cool feminist themes going through it. I did really enjoy this. I think this is the best short story collection I've read this year. Although that might not be saying much because I don't typically enjoy short story collections. But this one I did actually enjoy a lot. I gave it 4 stars. There were just a lot of stories about motherhood and being threatened and insane things happening to society. It was all very, very cool. I really enjoyed it. Non-fiction I read this month was Fire, Flood, Plague, Australian Writers Respond to 2020, which was edited by Sophie Cunningham, and this was a collection of essays about Australian writers just talking about everything that happened last year in Australia. It was really good. I gave it a 4.5. But this was a really cool book. I would definitely recommend it if you are interested in hearing about that. If you live in Australia, it's probably just worth reading in general. Then I listened to The Lost Girls of Paris by Pam Jenoff. This is a historical fiction story about these women who were radio transmitters who were sent to France, and about how history kind of just forgot about them and they weren't really spoken about. So it's inspired by true events. So this book in theory should have been right up my street, but it wasn't really. The story follows 3 characters. Grace, who's this American woman who finds a suitcase with photos of the girls who was sent to Paris in it. You have Eleanor, who was the recruiter who recruited the girls, and then one of the girls, Marie, I think she was Marie. Um, I kind of think this book would have been more interesting if I'm trying to decide what would have made this story better. I think Grace was pretty unnecessary. We didn't really need someone learning about it while also having the story told from someone who was experiencing it and then the recruiter. You could kind of just either not had Marie and had someone learning about this all after the fact, or just someone experiencing the events. I didn't need to hear the story kind of in two different ways at the same time. It wasn't necessary. It made it a bit too long and just a bit overly complex for what it was. I also just kind of thought the writing was rather bland. There was just a lot of the sky was grey and it didn't really do much for me. So I gave this a 3.5. I think some people could like it, but I think the general consensus when I looked at other reviews was that it was a little too much. Then I read Mrs. March by Virginia Fieto, not quite sure, which is a new release this year, and it's a thriller about this woman whose husband is a really, really famous writer, and one day she goes to her local bakery to pick up a few things, and the woman who works there asks her how she feels about her husband writing a character based on her. And her husband's latest book is about this really awful woman, and now the wife thinks that it's based on her. And it's just exploring this woman as she starts to question every aspect of her marriage and tries to figure out what it all means, and looking back at her life to see how she got to this point. It was a really interesting story. It was a little bit more gory than I was expecting it to be. It's definitely got a few more horror elements in it that I wasn't expecting. I gave it a four stars because I kind of could see where it was going. It wasn't particularly surprising, but I thought it was a really cool book, and I definitely recommend it if you think you'd be interested in the story. Then I read This Green and Pleasant Land by Isha Malak, which I've mentioned a couple times on my channel, and this is the story of this 30-something Muslim man. His mother dies, and on her deathbed she asks him to build a mosque in his small English village, and it's about him telling the village he wants to build this mosque and their negative reaction to this. And the book explores lots of different points of view, his point of view, his wife's point of view, his aunt, and then people in the village. So I think it gives a very kind of fair view of how everyone is seeing this idea, and tries not to judge anyone too harshly, and acknowledges that everyone's got their own stuff going on, even though the village expects everyone to act a particular way. So I thought it was a really cool book. I gave it 4 stars. Yes. And then the final book I read this month was Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This is a book I've heard everyone talk about for ages, and I know it's one of Adele's favourite books, so then I had to read it. And this is kind of somewhat of a self-help book, but also kind of more of a collection of stories from Glennon Doyle's life. She's led a very interesting life and gone through a lot of things, and it's kind of just exploring how she learned to start living for herself instead of living for everyone around her, and how living for herself made the lives of everyone around her better because she wasn't trying to cage herself in and living a lie. So it was a really, really cool book. I gave that 4 stars as well. Whew, I feel like I've been talking for a while. So that's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. I will be doing a Vlogmas this year, but I think I'll do it once a week instead of every day, because every day sounds like chaos. And I will see you next time. Bye.